Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Adrienne Ballantyne. And Adrienne has a question about two-spirited people, that is to say, people who do not conform to binary gender roles, people who might come under the heading of gay, lesbian, bi, or transgender, etc. And her question is this. Adrienne is aware that many Native American cultures venerated two-spirited people, and it is from that background that the term comes, and that they regarded them as occupying a special spiritual place and having a vital role in the spiritual balance and safety of the people. And she has encountered certain references from the ancient Middle East that make her wonder if this might have been the same there. And her question is, were two-spirited people regarded in a special spiritual light in the ancient Middle East, Europe, etc.? And my answer is that it depends where you were, just as it does in Native American cultures. It's not a single answer for everyone, but in many cases the answer is yes. And Adrienne references a passage in the Bible denouncing what effectively is a transgender priesthood. And there are actually a lot of references denouncing this in the Bible, which tells you it's a very prominent thing. And throughout much of the ancient Middle East, and much of the ancient Mediterranean world, to be sure, people who had come under the heading of two-spirited people were regarded as having a special spiritual role, at least in some cases. We don't necessarily have the world's most detailed information about these cultures, but we do know that they had many priesthoods which you might describe as being transgender. And this was certainly the case in the Middle East. It was also the case in the Hellenistic world, and you encounter a number of prominent ancient priesthoods who would fall under this category. This was certainly true, again, in the Middle East, and was one of the primary things that the authors of the Bible disliked about surrounding religions, because apparently it upset them. But you also find it among the priesthood of Heracles in the Hellenistic world, and also the goddess Cybele. And the priesthood of the goddess Cybele is probably the most famous of this sort of priesthood. And she was served by what amount to transgender priestesses. Now, how many other deities in the ancient Mediterranean world may have had this? Would you have found it farther north? Well, we only know what they recorded or what was recorded about them, but certainly it was a feature of their societies. Now, these societies were not always comfortable with people who fell outside of the gender binary role outside of these priesthoods, but they often did have this particular outlet, and within that context, often regarded people who would fall under the heading of two-spirited as being in a kind of a sacred role. And again, it depends on who you're talking about, and when you're talking about, and where you're talking about, but it was a feature of many of the ancient pagan religions of the area. And if you wanted to study more about this, well, you know, there's only so much to be studied, but you certainly can find a certain amount of literature on the subject. Now, what does this mean to us today in terms of modern paganism? Well, it certainly means that we have a long history of looking upon two-spirited people as a special and sacred thing. And it, in my opinion, invalidates any prejudices against them as being a rather silly thing that we really ought not to do. So those would be my thoughts on the subject. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may you blessed be. Pray for peace. Pray for love. Pray for stability. Pray for the nation where you live. Pray for the world. The Tarot of Hecate. My 100-card tarot deck, 30 years in the making, finally available to you from witchschoolstore.com. Check out a copy today.